All right, guys, so what we're going to do now is we're going to continue with this balanced and unbalanced forces. Coming off of the lecture, we talked about how you get your net force. And so we got to go, our next step is, now that we understand what balanced, unbalanced forces are, we need to go about and figuring out about calculating. How do you calculate your net force? And so we're going to go through, and there's a guided practice sheet here, and we will work through this. Let me just start out with some steps. So let's go step one is to calculate your magnitude. Calculate your magnitude. Step two is to determine your direction. And I tell you what, don't forget, big star this right here. Don't forget about your units. Don't forget your units. And remember, those that we're talking about, that we're doing those in newtons. We calculate force in newtons. So we're going to do that. So there's your steps. You're calculating magnitude, you're determining your direction, and then your units. Remember, when we do this, when we get down here, we're going to remember that we're going to have a magnitude, which is just basic your number. That's your basic number of your force, newtons, your unit, and your direction. So you have three things that you're going to be your answer for your net force. It's going to be the magnitude in newtons with the direction. Let's talk about real quick. We're going to when we calculate the magnitude. So we're going to calculate magnitude. Okay, so calculating your magnitude. Okay, so you take your two numbers, as in this one's going to be 2 and 4. If your answer is equal to 0, if your answer is 0, your net for your net force. If your answer is 0, then you have balanced forces, and there is no change in motion. So remember that you have no change in motion if your answer is 0. If your answer is 0. But if your answer is not 0, if your answer is not 0, then unbalanced forces. Okay, unbalanced forces. Okay, if it's not 0, and if it's not 0 and it's unbalanced, then movement occurs. Okay, so if the answer is not 0, then you have an unbalanced force and your movement occurs. So we'll have to remember that. That's just some notes that I want you to have down on this sheet, so that when you're going back and studying, that you have these notes that you can look back on. Another thing that I want you to remember and want you to have down on your notes page here is when you're looking at your force direction, when you're looking at force direction, okay, if your arrows are in the same direction, so they're going the same way, if they're in the same direction, then you add the forces. Okay, so if they're going in the same direction, like this right here, then you add the forces together, and that gives you your net force. I know I'm writing all over this one right here, but I just kind of want you to have that down. I want you to have that where you can look at, see it. Now, if they're going opposite of each other, that they're opposing forces, meaning that they're not in the same direction, they're not going together. Could be this way, could be with the arrows going that way. Then subtract. Then subtract forces to get net force. Okay? And that's just some of the stuff I want you to note. Just some notes on this sheet. Notes that you got going on so that you can kind of see what's and actually get to your answer there on your sheet. Okay, so let's start, and I'm going to go ahead and I'll just start with number 1 here. First off, we're looking at, we have 2 newtons to the right, and 4 newtons to the right. Okay, they're in the same direction, so I'm going to add them together. So 2 newtons plus 4 newtons equals 6 newtons. And so there's my magnitude. I just did my magnitude on my number step 1, calculating magnitude. Then I've got to determine my direction. Well, this one's right and that one's right, so it's going to be to the right. So my net force, and remember there's 3 parts to this. You got your number, 6, my units, newtons, and then I have my direction, which is going to be to the right. Now, change in motion. Remember back over here we said we're calculating motion, or calculating magnitude to find our motion. If it's 0, there's no change in motion. If the answer is not 0, then unbalanced forces and movement occurs. So, we change in motion, yes, 6, so yes, a change in motion. And is this force balanced or unbalanced? It's not 0, so it is unbalanced. So we're looking at that right there, guys. Okay? Now, let's go on. Let's look at this next one. We have number 2. We have 5 newtons to the right, and we have 5 newtons to the left. Okay? So we have right and left. Opposing forces. So since they're opposing forces, we are going to subtract. So 5 minus 5 equals 0. And if we have 0, then we're pretty much done there. Our net force is 0. Our change in motion, no change in motion. And the force is balanced. Okay? Real quick and easy. They're not too hard to figure that one out. And we just move forward with that, and we've got it. Let's go on to 3. So now we have 8 newtons to the left, and we have 10 newtons to the right. And so they're going against each other. They're opposing forces, so we subtract. So 8 let's see, 10 newtons minus 8 newtons equals 2 newtons. So there's my magnitude. There's my magnitude of 2 newtons. And then I have to decide, is it going to the right or is it going to go to the left? Well, 10 is bigger than 8. And so the 2 newtons that are left over are over on this side, which is the right side. So my net force, 2 newtons to the right. Since there was something left over, it's not 0. So my change in motion, yes, I have a change in motion. Is it balanced or unbalanced? It's unbalanced because I have something left over. If I didn't have anything left over, it wouldn't be balanced. Okay, so let's look at this one. We'll do number 4. Number 4. We have 5 newtons to the, we're going this way, so that's left. And we have 5 newtons going that way, which is to the right. And let's see, they're going opposing, so they're opposing forces, so we're going to subtract. So 5 newtons minus 5 newtons equals 0. So there we go again. We're back into the 0 thing. So net force is 0. Change in motion, no. And it is balanced. Okay? Following along with this, guys. It's not too hard. It's not too hard. I don't understand how come I keep swinging here on my little bar. But it seems like that's what's happening. Okay? So let's look at this next one. We're going to have the next one being, we've got 10 newtons to the, looks like it's going this direction, so that's right. And we have this one that's 2 newtons to the right. So both of my arrows are going to the right. If they're going in the same direction, then you add. So it's going to be 10 newtons plus 2 newtons equals 12 newtons. And there's my magnitude. Once again, I'm calculating magnitude and then going to find my direction. So 12, the number, then my units, comma, giving me both of these are to the right, so I'm going to go to the right. Change in motion, answer was not 0, so yes. Change in motion, and it was unbalanced. Hope y'all are getting this down. I hope you're finding that this is becoming kind of super easy for you. It's really not that hard. This is pretty basic stuff, just calculating out your basic forces. So let's look at the last one here on this sheet. You have number 6. You have 5 newtons to the left. You have 2 newtons to the left and 10 newtons to the right. Okay, so you have left and right, they're opposing. But wait a minute, these two guys are in the same direction. So let's add those real quick. 5 plus 2 is 7 newtons. So now we have 7 newtons to the left and 10 newtons to the right. So let's see how we're going to do. First off, let's get our magnitude, because that's the first thing we're supposed to do. So 10 newtons minus 7 newtons equals 3 newtons. So net force 3, and then add our unit. Our unit is in newtons, capital N, remember that. And then we got to figure out which way is it going to be going, to the right or to the left. Well, there's 2 guys here going to the right, to the left, so wouldn't that make it bigger? No, we've added these 2 together and there's only a total of 7 newtons in that force. So there's 10 newtons over here. So 7 or 10, 10's bigger, so the 3 newtons that are left over on the right hand heading to the right side. So this is going to be to the right. Change in motion, I had something left over, so the answer is not 0. So it is movement occurs, yes. We're having a change and it's unbalanced. I hope y'all are getting this. I hope y'all understand. If you have any questions, you know you can come to me in class at any time. Give me a yell or even leave a question at the bottom. Don't leave me any comments about my movement of my camera. I'll get this figured out. It's just going to take some time to get all this straight. You know I'm only doing it for you guys. I want you guys to succeed and love Bruce Junior High. You guys are the greatest. All right.